Hey guys, welcome to another reaction video. Today, me and John watched me being Axel, the ILMxLAB, and the panel for pioneering immersive storytelling. That was a mouthful. Basically, these guys have made this VR experience called The Void. It's a Star Wars game that I believe it's in Disneyland or something. But
they say Glendale Gallery, downtown Disney.
Go there. But it apparently is one of the most immersive VR experiences out right now. I don't think it's using
Well, first of all, Industrial Light and Magic, that's Lucasfilms.
Yes, this is
and it was hosted by Amy Hennig, the creator of the Uncharted series. And so yeah, I just want to say that. Continue.
Adding some context there. Yeah. So I haven't tried this Void, the Void as it's called.
Except for the void in your soul.
But yeah, this was a very interesting panel because they were talking about the struggle of creating an immersive story within VR. And we're used to characters like Nathan Drake or Solid Snake where you're kind of like in a third-person perspective watching a character. And although the player's in control of the character, the storytellers have a lot more control than they do with VR. In VR, you're sort of in this world, and basically you have to create the story yourself.
What do you mean by that?
The authors of the game will create the world around you so you can interact with the people that are in front of you. You can go on journeys by yourself, and I could see how games are moving towards that, even with like what was it, the Shadow of Tsushima, like
I mean Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima, where it's just like an open world and you're able to go wherever you want, and I think that's where we're headed with VR. So they were saying like there's no single answer to storytelling in VR. We're kind of in like the Wild West here.
Going back to like what you were saying about story, I mean, I feel like that's not just VR. That's just all video games, especially open world games, where the player you can't, as a game designer, you can't control what the player's going to do first, or what their personal experience is going to be in an open world situation. So I don't know. I'm a little bit confused of why they thought that was specifically a VR problem. But I feel like that what they were more maybe talking about was that the difference between film and an interactive medium in general,
I think they were talking about how much control they have over the character. Like we still have cutscenes.
So it's not just VR. It's just interactive medium. Where they said like in a film, you could zoom in on a specific conversation taking place. Whereas they were talking about in some VR experiences, they were talking about this one experience where you're walking with a group of people and the player, gets to decide for themselves what conversations they are listening in on and all of that. And the designer doesn't really know how that is going to play out when the player actually is participating in it,
Yeah, the player in VR clearly has a lot more options. I mean, it's just expanding this open world even further. So they said that we have to create a world where, in which stories can happen rather than having like a linear goal. But as you said, it is kind of like just video games that are out right now. I just think it's going to be exponentially, I don't know, we're going even further in that direction now with VR because you are completely the character, like your arms and legs and whatever you do. Like it's not just like choices based on like dialogue. Like you can do whatever you want.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like where they were talking about they also have to kind of compensate for people that have been doing VR for a while and newcomers. Where they said if a newcomer will put on a headset and be like, "Oh my God, this looks like a real chair," and we'll just be looking at a chair for like 5 minutes. Whereas someone that's experienced will put on and be like, "Okay, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing?" And so you kind of have to play into that. So like, it's kind of interesting. Where imagine if you have like this interactive story experience and you want the player to have a certain flow with that, but they're just staring at a chair for 5 minutes. You don't really have control over that,
That's true. So I guess games have to be designed in a way where it allows players to kind of like take their time or, well, not speed through it, but have an understanding of what to do in these experiences. But I don't know. I personally feel like game developers are having less and less control over what the player does, at least in future games. And I hope they still end up making games that have like a clear direction in which you're going to go. Or are they going to like funnel gamers into certain scenarios and you don't know how you got there, but
right. It's just like what we were talking about in one of the previous videos of, good game design is when you've convinced the player that it was their free will, their choice to do a certain thing or go a certain way, but really you were kind of funneling them in that direction or lightly guiding them that way, subconsciously. What was interesting about this Void experience, I don't think you mentioned that there's real world objects that could be touched, and they were saying you could smell things and touch things, because you're actually have like a backpack on and you're walking around with the VR headset in a real environment. So they were talking about like this Star Wars experience where you felt like you were there, and one of the guys was talking about that he then went back in without the VR helmet to see, the real objects. And he's like, nah, this doesn't matter. I don't want to even remember it this way. I want to remember what it was like in the environment. But that's cool because in a situation like that, you don't have to worry about pressing a button on a controller to go to a certain direction. You're just moving around that environment as you would in real life. I don't know how we would ever get to a point where that would be simulated in the living room, for example. But
do you know how big this apartment is? Not enough to walk around and feel like you're in Star Wars, that's for sure.
Yeah, we need like the Star Trek Next Generation holodeck or something. But
gotta feel like you're moving your muscles, but that's like some other weird stuff that might come out when we're dead.
I mean, a big thing for me with this too is that Amy Hennig was hosting, and it just really makes me miss her games. Like, I want to play another Amy Hennig game. I mean, I don't know how much you guys have followed this, but years ago she was fired from Naughty Dog. Nobody really knows why exactly, while they were making Uncharted 4. And then she got hired by Visceral, the guys that made Dead Space. And then she was put on a project to make a Star Wars game with them. And so that was like super exciting. Like, it's going to be like an Uncharted Star Wars game.
Yeah.
And by Visceral, the guys that made Dead Space. I'm like, man, I want to play that. And then that got canceled, and Visceral got terminated completely. And now we have no idea what she's doing. We know that she's in the EA sort of.
She did mention during the conference,
the
panel, that she's under like some certain NDAs. So I think there's something going on. We just don't know yet.
It's just crazy to think that we haven't played Amy Hennig game since Uncharted 3. So that was 2011.
That's a long time.
So 7 years, and we don't even know what she's working on now because that Star Wars game that she was working on for years just got canceled. Like, what was it, last year? Or earlier this year, I think. So, I don't know. It's just kind of...
Build up the hype, guys.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like, by the time she comes up with something else, it'll probably be a decade since she's released the game. And which is crazy because she's one of the most renowned video game designers in the industry. But I miss her. And yeah, it was nice to see her. But I miss playing her games.
But yeah, I think we'll close it at that.
Yeah.
As usual, just
Like,
share, and subscribe. Check out our other videos that we made during the E3 press conference. And yeah, geek out.
NYC Geek Out. All right. See you soon, buddies.